Marcos Andrade was a man of power, a successful entrepreneur who had built an empire from the ground up. By the age of 38, he had amassed a fortune in the tech industry, making him one of the most respected business leaders in the country. To the public eye, he was unstoppable. Behind the scenes, however, his personal life was a different story. He was married to Ana Clara, a kind and loving woman, and they were expecting their first child together. Ana was 8 months pregnant, eager to start their new chapter as parents, but for Marcos, the marriage had long lost its luster. One evening, at an extravagant gala hosted by one of his companies, Marcos did something that left everyone stunned. In the middle of the crowded event, surrounded by influential people, he turned to Ana with cold, cutting words. She, standing there with her hand gently resting on her swollen belly, looked visibly shaken as Marcos raised his voice. The guests went silent as they watched the scene unfold. He insulted her publicly, calling her weak and useless to his life. Ana, fighting back tears, tried to calm him down, but he was relentless. The cruelest moment came when Marcos announced, in front of everyone, that he was leaving Ana. He revealed that he had been seeing another woman, someone younger, more exciting, someone who understood him better, his new lover. Carolina, a stunning and ambitious model, stood at the edge of the room, her lips curled in a smug smile, as if to seal the humiliation. Marcos walked over to Carolina, took her hand, and led her out of the event, leaving Ana standing there, broken and humiliated. The room was filled with whispers, but no one dared approach Ana. The pain in her heart was unbearable, but it soon became physical. Overcome by the emotional shock, she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. The stress of the confrontation had sent her into early labor. In the chaos that followed, she was rushed to the hospital, alone. Hours later, Ana gave birth to a healthy baby girl, but the joy of her daughter's arrival was overshadowed by the heartbreak of Marcos' betrayal. Still, as she held her newborn in her arms, she made a vow to herself. She would survive this. She would be strong, not just for herself, but for her child. 3 years passed. Ana rebuilt her life, dedicating herself to raising her daughter. Marcos, on the other hand, was about to face the consequences of his actions in ways he could never have anticipated. 3 years had gone by since that night of betrayal, and Ana Clara was no longer the same woman. Gone was the timid, quiet wife who had once clung to the hope that her husband would change. Now, she stood tall, independent, and fiercely dedicated to her daughter, Beatriz. The pain of Marcos' public humiliation had not been forgotten, but it had transformed her. She had taken the hurt, the anger, and the despair and turned it into strength. In those 3 years, Ana had to learn to navigate the world as a single mother. At first, it was terrifying, raising a child alone while also dealing with the emotional scars of the past. But Beatriz was her anchor, the bright spot that kept her going. Every morning, Ana would wake up to her daughter's smile, and that was all the motivation she needed to keep pushing forward. With a background in marketing, Ana decided to start her own small business. She focused on digital strategies, helping local companies grow their online presence. At first, it was a slow process, but Ana's determination was unshakable. She worked late into the night, often after Beatriz had fallen asleep, juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship with tireless energy. The success she built over those 3 years wasn't just about the money. It was about proving to herself that she could survive and thrive without Marcos. Meanwhile, Marcos' life with Carolina had taken a very different turn. What had started as a passionate affair had quickly soured. Carolina was beautiful, yes, but her ambitions extended beyond being the wife of a rich businessman. She wanted fame, attention, and excitement, none of which Marcos was able to sustain in the long term. Their relationship became rocky, filled with arguments and resentment. The glamorous life he thought he wanted turned into a constant source of stress. While Ana found peace in her new life, Marcos was struggling. His business empire was no longer as stable as it once had been. Bad investments, internal conflicts, and the distraction of his personal life had begun to take their toll. The media started reporting rumors of financial troubles. Worse, Carolina's extravagant lifestyle only drained his resources further. What had once been a symbol of his power and control now felt like a burden he could no longer carry. Ana, however, remained focused on her daughter and her growing business. She didn't follow the news about Marcos, nor did she concern herself with his downfall. She had cut him out of her life completely, except when it came to Beatriz. Despite everything, she made sure that Beatriz had some contact with her father. Every few months, Marcos would see his daughter, but their relationship was distant at best. He wasn't the father Ana had hoped he would be, but she had stopped expecting anything from him long ago. What mattered most to Ana was that Beatriz was happy, healthy, and loved, and slowly, Ana began to realize that she, too, was healing. She was rediscovering Parts of herself that had been buried during her marriage to Marcos. She was no longer just the wife of a wealthy businessman. She was Ana Clara, a strong, independent woman who had built a life on her own terms. Then, one day, something happened that would bring Marcos back into Ana's world in a way she could never have predicted. It was a phone call, one that would change everything once again. It was a quiet afternoon when the call came. Ana was sitting at her desk, reviewing a project for a client, while Beatriz was happily playing in the next room. The phone rang, and Ana glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. Normally, she would ignore it, but something made her pick up this time. "Hello?" She answered, her voice calm but cautious. "Ana?" The voice on the other end was familiar, but different. It took her a second to recognize it, but when she did, her heart skipped a beat. It was Marcos. Her hand tightened around the phone as old emotions bubbled up. Anger, hurt, resentment. But she kept her voice steady. "Marcos? Why are you calling me?" There was a pause on the line, the kind that made Ana's stomach twist in knots. It wasn't like Marcos to hesitate. He was always so sure of himself, always in control, but now, something was different. His voice was softer, almost uncertain. "I need to see you. It's important." Ana couldn't believe what she was hearing. After 3 years of near silence, after the way he had destroyed their life together, now he wanted to talk. She felt a wave of anger surge through her, but before she could speak, Marcos added, "Please, Ana, it's not about me, it's about Beatriz." Her heart sank. When it came to her daughter, Ana couldn't take any chances. She sat up straighter, every instinct in her screaming to protect Beatriz. "What about her? Is she all right? What's going on?" "I don't want to explain over the phone," he said, his voice low and almost pleading. "Can we meet tomorrow?" Ana hesitated. She had built a life without him, one that was finally stable, and now here he was, dragging her back into his world. But the mention of Beatriz made it impossible to ignore. If it concerned her daughter, she needed to know. Reluctantly, she agreed. "Fine, tomorrow, but this better be important." The next day, Ana found herself sitting at a quiet cafe, her nerves on edge as she waited for Marcos to arrive. She hadn't seen him in months, and the last time they had spoken face to face, it had been a brief and cold exchange during one of his rare visits to see Beatriz. Now, as she sat there, she wondered what he could possibly have to say that was so urgent. When he finally arrived, Ana was taken aback by his appearance. Marcos, who had always been so polished and put together, looked worn down. His once pristine suit was slightly rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He sat down across from her, and for a moment, they just looked at each other in silence. "I didn't know if you'd come," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "You didn't give me much of a choice," Ana replied, her tone sharp. "What's this about Beatriz?" Marcos ran a hand through his hair, clearly struggling with how to start. "It's complicated, but I need to be honest with you. Things haven't been going well for me." Ana crossed her arms, unimpressed. "That much is obvious. Get to the point, Marcos." He sighed heavily, leaning forward. "My businesses, they're failing. I've made some bad decisions, and now everything's falling apart. Carolina left me a few months ago, took whatever she could and disappeared. I'm facing bankruptcy." Ana listened, but her heart didn't soften. This was the man who had humiliated her, destroyed their family, and now he wanted sympathy. "And what does any of this have to do with Beatriz?" she asked, her patience wearing thin. Marcos swallowed hard. "I can't lose her too, Ana. I know I've been a terrible father, and I haven't been there for her the way I should have, but I want to change that. I want to be part of her life, before it's too late." Ana's heart tightened. After everything he had done, after abandoning them for another woman, now he wanted to be a father? It was almost laughable. She didn't know whether to be angry or sad. She looked him in the eyes, trying to gauge if this was just another one of his manipulations, or if he was truly sincere. "And what makes you think you deserve that chance now?" Ana asked, her voice cold but steady. "I don't," Marcos admitted, his voice trembling slightly, "but I'm asking for it, for her sake." Ana sat back, her mind spinning. The man in front of her seemed different from the one who had destroyed her world 3 years ago, but could she trust him? Could she really allow him back into Beatriz's life after everything? The weight of the decision pressed down on her, and she knew that whatever she chose would change everything. Again, Ana stared at Marcos, trying to reconcile the broken man in front of her with the one who had so ruthlessly abandoned her and Beatriz. His words lingered in the air, heavy with regret, but Ana wasn't ready to be swayed by them. She had spent the last 3 years building a world where Marcos barely existed, a world where she and Beatriz were thriving without him, and now, just when everything seemed stable, he wanted to re-enter their lives. Marcos sat there, waiting for her to say something. his eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and guilt. Anna's thoughts raced. Could he truly be different this time? Or was this just another selfish attempt to fix his crumbling life? She took a deep breath and leaned forward. You think you can just show up after 3 years and be a father? After everything you did to us? Her voice was steady, but the anger that simmered beneath was unmistakable. I know, Marcos said quietly. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm not asking for forgiveness, I'm asking for a chance to be better for her. Anna shook her head. Beatriz doesn't even know who you are. You've missed everything. The first words, the first steps. You weren't there for her, Marcos. You weren't there for me. The pain of those words was clear on Marcos' face. He dropped his gaze to the table, his hands clenched together. I regret it every single day, he murmured. I was selfish, and I let you both down. But Anna, I'm losing everything, and the one thing that terrifies me more than that is losing my daughter completely. I need to be a part of her life. Anna wanted to laugh at the irony. The man who had walked away without looking back was now pleading for the very thing he had thrown away so carelessly, but deep down, beneath the layers of anger and resentment, there was something else. Fear. Could Beatriz grow up without knowing her father? Was she prepared to shut Marcos out completely, knowing it might affect her daughter someday? She rubbed her temples, the weight of the decision pressing on her. You can't just walk in and out of her life, Marcos, Anna said, her voice softening just a little. If I let you back in, you have to be all in. No half measures, no disappearing again. Marcos nodded quickly, his eyes lighting up with a glimmer of hope. I swear, Anna, I won't let her down again. I'll do whatever it takes. Anna looked away, unsure of what to believe. She wanted to protect her daughter from the pain that Marcos had caused her, but at the same time, she knew that if Beatriz ever asked about her father in the future, she didn't want to be the one who denied her the chance to know him. You're on thin ice, Marcos, Anna warned. One mistake, one sign that you're not serious about this, and you're gone, for good. I understand, Marcos said, relief flooding his voice. Thank you, Anna, you don't know how much this means to me. I'm not doing this for you. Anna shot back, her tone firm. I'm doing this for Beatriz. You better not forget that. The conversation left Anna emotionally drained. As she walked out of the cafe, she couldn't shake the feeling that she might be making a mistake. Could a man like Marcos really change? Or was this just another chapter in a cycle of disappointment? That evening, as Anna tucked Beatriz into bed, she sat by her daughter's side, brushing a few strands of hair away from her face. Beatriz was everything to her. If Marcos hurt her, Anna didn't know if she could ever forgive him. In the quiet of the night, Anna wrestled with her decision. She had given Marcos a chance, but now the hard part was watching to see if he could truly be the father that Beatriz deserved. The past had left deep scars, and healing wasn't guaranteed, and as Marcos began to work his way back into their lives, Anna couldn't help but wonder, was this the start of redemption, or just another looming heartbreak? What do you think of this section? Are you ready for the next part, or do you have any adjustments in mind? The days following that meeting with Marcos were tense. Anna had agreed to let him visit Beatriz under strict conditions, but the fear of him letting their daughter down weighed heavily on her heart. She wasn't sure how Beatriz would react, or if Marcos could truly commit to being the father he claimed he wanted to be. There was no turning back now. He would either rise to the occasion or prove once again that he was unreliable. The first visit was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the local park, a neutral place where Beatriz could feel comfortable and safe. Anna told her daughter they were going to meet someone special, a friend she hadn't seen in a while. Beatriz, curious but innocent, accepted the news without too much thought. At 3 years old, she was too young to understand the complexities of the situation. Anna's heart ached with the knowledge that this meeting would set the tone for their future relationship. When they arrived at the park, Marcos was already there, sitting nervously on a bench. Anna hadn't seen him this anxious in years, and it took her by surprise. He wasn't the self-assured businessman she had once known. Now, he looked vulnerable, perhaps for the first time. As soon as Beatriz spotted him, her little eyes lit up, excited by the prospect of a new face in the crowd. Anna gripped her daughter's hand a little tighter, unsure of how this would play out. Beatriz, this is Marcos, Anna said gently, crouching down to meet her daughter's gaze. He's someone who really wants to get to know you. Beatriz smiled shyly but didn't say anything. She looked up at Anna for reassurance, and Anna nodded, encouraging her to take a step forward. Marcos bent down to Beatriz's level, a soft smile on his face. Hi, Beatriz, I've been waiting a long time to meet you. For a moment, there was silence. Anna held her breath, watching the interaction unfold. She had no idea how Beatriz would respond, and the tension was unbearable. But then, to her surprise, Beatriz stepped forward and extended her little hand to Marcos. "Hi," she said in her small voice, her curiosity outweighing her shyness. "Do you like to play?" The relief on Marco's face was palpable. He laughed softly, nodding. "I love to play. What do you like to do?" "Swings," Beatrice exclaimed, pointing to the playground. Marcos chuckled and nodded toward Anna, seeking silent permission. Anna hesitated, but then gave a small nod, allowing him to take the first steps toward bonding with their daughter. For the next hour, Anna watched from a distance as Marcos pushed Beatrice on the swings, his face lighting up with every giggle that escaped her. The two of them, in that moment, seemed to be connecting in a way Anna hadn't anticipated. It was bittersweet. A part of her was relieved that Beatrice was enjoying the time with her father, but another part of her was afraid to let herself hope. What if this didn't last? What if this was just a fleeting moment, soon to be followed by disappointment? Marcos seemed to be trying, that much was clear. He was attentive, patient, and genuinely happy to be with Beatrice. But Anna couldn't forget the man he had been, the hurtful words, the betrayal, the abandonment. Those scars ran deep, and no amount of playground smiles could erase them. She knew this was only the beginning, and that trust, once broken, couldn't be rebuilt in a single afternoon. When the time came to leave, Beatrice, with all the innocent joy of a child, asked if Marcos could come again. Her question hung in the air, and both Marcos and Anna felt its weight. Marcos looked to Anna, silently asking for her approval. "We'll see, Beatrice," Anna said, her voice soft but cautious. "Maybe next time." As they drove home, Beatrice was full of excitement, babbling about her new friend. Anna smiled, listening, but her mind was far away. She knew that Marcos had made a good first impression, but that was the easy part. The real challenge would be in the consistency, in showing up time after time, proving that he was committed to this new role in their daughter's life. Over the next few weeks, Marcos continued to visit Beatrice, each time showing up as promised. He was attentive, playful, and slowly, Anna began to see something she hadn't expected. Marcos seemed genuinely invested in being a father, but even as she saw this change in him, she couldn't help but remain guarded. Could this new version of Marcos last? Or was it just another temporary facade? The walls around her heart remained up, fortified by years of hurt and disappointment, and while Beatrice was slowly getting to know her father, Anna knew it would take much longer for her to truly trust him again. As the weeks turned into months, Anna found herself at a crossroads. Marcos was becoming more involved, not just in Beatrice's life, but tentatively in hers as well. She couldn't deny the effort he was putting in, but she also couldn't forget the past, and somewhere deep inside, she wondered, was there still room for forgiveness, or was it too late to heal the wounds he had caused? As the weeks went by, Marcos' presence in Beatrice's life grew. He was consistent, always arriving on time, always making sure to bring something thoughtful for his daughter. He wasn't just showing up physically, he was engaging with her, learning her quirks, her favorite games, and the little things that made her smile. Every visit, Beatrice grew more attached to him, and Anna couldn't help but notice the positive effect it had on their daughter. But for Anna, watching Marcos bond with Beatrice was a mixed experience. On one hand, she was grateful to see Beatrice so happy. The little girl had been thriving, her laughter becoming more frequent, her stories about Daddy filled with joy. But for Anna, there was a deeper wound that hadn't healed. Every time she saw Marcos, she was reminded of the pain he had caused her, the humiliation, and the heartbreak that nearly destroyed her. Marcos tried to stay respectful of her boundaries. He didn't push for more than she was willing to give, always keeping his focus on Beatrice. But Anna could sense a shift in him, a subtle but undeniable desire to mend things between them. She noticed the way he looked at her sometimes, with a mixture of regret and longing, though he never spoke of it directly. One evening, after one of Marcos' visits, Anna found herself unable to sleep. She tossed and turned, memories of the past swirling in her mind, along with the confusing emotions of the present. She got up, careful not to wake Beatrice, and sat on the small balcony of their apartment, staring out at the city lights. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the day Marcos left her, the way he had walked out so callously with Carolina, leaving Anna pregnant and heartbroken. Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Marcos. She hesitated for a moment before opening it. "I know I've hurt you more than I can ever say. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know that I'm trying to be better, not just for Beatrice, but because you and she deserve better. I'm sorry, Anna, truly." Anna stared at the message for a long time, emotions she had buried deep down beginning to resurface. She had wanted this apology for so long, but now that it was here, it felt hollow, as if words alone could never repair the damage that had been done. She didn't reply. Instead, she put the phone down and allowed herself to cry. Tears she hadn't shed in years, tears for the woman she once was and the man she Thought she knew. The next day, as Anna prepared for another visit from Marcos, she felt a weight on her chest. She knew she needed to confront the feelings that had been simmering beneath the surface. If Marcos was going to be a permanent fixture in Beatrice's life, they couldn't continue avoiding the elephant in the room. When Marcos arrived, Beatrice ran to him, as she always did, her excitement palpable. Anna watched them for a moment, then cleared her throat. Marcos, can we talk? Alone? She asked, gesturing toward the living room while Beatrice played nearby. He looked surprised but nodded. They sat down, and for a few moments, there was only silence between them. Finally, Anna spoke. You've been doing well with Beatrice, she began, her voice steady but tense, but we both know that this isn't just about her. Marcos met her gaze, understanding what she meant without needing further explanation. Anna, I know I can't undo the past. No, you can't, she interrupted, her tone sharper than she intended, but you need to understand something. You broke me. What you did, it changed me in ways you can't even imagine. Marcos looked down, guilt written all over his face. I was selfish, I thought about myself, about what I wanted, and I didn't care who I hurt in the process. I know that now. Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. You didn't just leave me, Marcos, you humiliated me. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was disposable, and I had to pick up the pieces, alone, while raising our daughter. I regret it every day, Marcos said, his voice thick with emotion. I know I can't ask for your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I see the pain I caused, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it, not just for Beatrice, but for you too, Anna. Let his words hang in the air, unsure of how to respond. She had been waiting for this, waiting for Marcos to acknowledge the depth of the damage he had done, but even now, the apology couldn't heal the scars that ran so deep. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Marcos, Anna said quietly, and I don't know if I even want to, but Beatrice, she deserves to have a father, so, for her sake, I'm willing to try and make this work, but don't think for a second that this means everything is okay between us. Marcos nodded, his expression filled with sorrow and acceptance. I understand, I'll take whatever you're willing to give. Anna stood up, feeling the weight of the conversation press down on her. We'll take this one day at a time, but if you hurt Beatrice, even once, I will never forgive you. I won't, Marcos promised, his voice steady. I swear, I won't. Anna watched him as he rejoined Beatrice, who was completely unaware of the heavy conversation that had just taken place. In that moment, Anna realized something. While Marcos might be trying to rebuild the trust he had shattered, she was still the one holding all the pieces, and for now, that was enough. Over the next few months, a fragile balance began to form between Anna, Beatrice, and Marcos. Anna kept her guard up, always cautious, but she couldn't deny that Marcos was making a genuine effort. He continued to show up for Beatrice, every visit, every planned outing, and slowly, their daughter was beginning to see him as part of her life. The sound of Beatrice calling him Daddy had become more frequent, and each time Anna heard it, her heart felt a mix of emotions. Relief for her daughter, but also a lingering bitterness that she couldn't quite shake. Marcos, for his part, remained patient. He didn't press Anna for more than she was ready to give, understanding that the wounds between them were still far from healed. But little by little, as he proved himself to be dependable, Anna found herself softening, if only slightly. There were moments, brief but noticeable, when they would talk about Beatrice or make plans, and Anna would catch herself feeling almost normal, like they were co-parents navigating the everyday challenges of raising a child. But beneath the surface, Anna's emotions were still complicated. She hadn't forgotten the past, and there were nights when the memories of Marcos' betrayal would come rushing back, uninvited and sharp as ever. She reminded herself that forgiveness, if it ever came, would be slow, if it came at all. One evening, after a long day, Anna sat down on the couch with Beatrice, who was curled up in her favorite blanket, watching her favorite cartoon. Beatrice looked up at her mother with a thoughtful expression, her innocent curiosity catching Anna off guard. Mommy, how come I didn't meet Daddy before? Beatrice asked suddenly, her wide eyes filled with questions that Anna knew would come eventually. Anna's heart clenched. She had always known this moment would come, but she wasn't prepared for it. She took a deep breath, trying to think of how to explain something so complicated to a 3-year-old. Well, sweetheart, sometimes adults make mistakes, she began, choosing her words carefully. Daddy wasn't around for a little while, but now he's here, and he's trying really hard to be with you. Beatrice seemed to accept that explanation for now, nodding as she snuggled closer to Anna. I'm glad he's here, Beatrice said softly, her little voice full of the pure love that only a child could give. Anna smiled down at her daughter, her heart aching with both love and fear. Beatrice was too young to understand the full story, and Anna wasn't sure when, or if, she would ever be ready to tell her. For now, she had to focus on what was best for Beatrice, even if that meant allowing Marcos to stay in their lives. One Saturday afternoon, a few weeks later, Marcos took Beatrice to a nearby park while Anna stayed behind to finish some work. It had become their routine, giving Anna a bit of time to herself while Marcos and Beatrice enjoyed their visits. Anna appreciated the break, but she also couldn't help the nervous feeling that always lingered when they were gone. No matter how hard Marcos was trying, trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. As Anna sat at her desk, her phone buzzed. It was a photo from Marcos. Beatrice on the swings. Her face lit up with pure joy as she reached out toward the sky. Anna smiled despite herself, the sight of her daughter's happiness filling her with warmth. But then, another message came through. This one from Marcos. Would you be willing to have dinner with us tonight? Just the three of us. Anna stared at the message for a long time, unsure of how to respond. She knew what this meant. It was a step beyond their usual dynamic, a shared meal, a moment of family togetherness that went beyond co-parenting. It was a line she hadn't crossed yet, and part of her was terrified to do so, but another part of her, the part that longed for some kind of resolution, wondered if maybe it was time to take that step. After all, Beatrice was already forming a bond with Marcos, and Anna couldn't deny that he was making a sincere effort. Maybe, just maybe, she could allow herself to try. She typed a response slowly, hesitating before hitting send. All right, dinner sounds good. That evening, Anna found herself sitting across the table from Marcos, with Beatrice happily munching on her food between them. It felt strange, almost surreal, like they were playing house, pretending to be something they weren't. But as the evening went on, something shifted. Marcos was attentive to Beatrice, making her laugh with silly stories, and Anna couldn't help but notice how natural it all felt. There was a warmth to the moment, a fleeting sense of peace that Anna hadn't felt in a long time. After dinner, when Beatrice had fallen asleep, Marcos and Anna found themselves alone. In the living room, the air between them was thick with unspoken words, but for once, the tension wasn't hostile. Marcos looked at Anna, his eyes soft, full of the same mixture of regret and hope that had been there since the beginning of his return. I know I'm asking for a lot, he said quietly, but I hope one day you can trust me again. I know I've said it before, but I really am sorry for everything I did. Anna looked at him, feeling the weight of his words. She didn't respond right away, because the truth was, she didn't know if she would ever be able to trust him fully. But what she did know was that, for now, he was trying, and maybe that was enough. We'll see, Marcos, she finally said, her voice soft but firm. One day at a time. As Marcos left that night, Anna sat on the edge of Beatrice's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. She still didn't know what the future held, or if she would ever be able to forgive Marcos for the pain he had caused, but for Beatrice's sake, she was willing to try, even if it meant reopening wounds she had worked so hard to heal. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something new. The weeks turned into months, and slowly, a new rhythm began to take shape in their lives. Anna, Marcos, and Beatrice were navigating this delicate balance, an uneasy peace that neither Anna nor Marcos dared to disrupt. There were dinners, afternoons in the park, and moments where they almost felt like a normal family. But despite the progress, Anna remained cautious. She had learned, painfully, that trusting too quickly could lead to heartbreak. Marcos, however, continued to surprise her. His consistency never wavered. He showed up for Beatrice time and again, honoring every promise he made. Anna couldn't deny that he was trying, and Beatrice, blissfully unaware of the complicated history between her parents, had grown to love him deeply. The joy on her face whenever he arrived was undeniable, and Anna knew that allowing him into their lives had been the right choice for Beatrice. But as much as Marcos was proving himself as a father, Anna still struggled to see him as anything more. Forgiveness, if it ever came, was still far on the horizon. She couldn't forget the betrayal, the way he had abandoned her when she needed him most. Those memories were ingrained too deeply, woven into the very fabric of who she had become. Marcos had been the catalyst for her transformation. He had broken her, and she had rebuilt herself from the ruins he left behind, and now, she didn't know if she could ever fully open herself up to him again. One evening, after Marcos had taken Beatrice home from one of their outings, Anna sat on the couch, sipping tea and reflecting on how much had changed in the past year. Her phone buzzed. It was another message from Marcos. I know this isn't easy for you, but I'm grateful for the chance to be in Beatrice's life. I'll never stop trying to prove that I've changed. Anna stared at the message, her emotions swirling. She didn't know what to say. Over the past year, Marcos had been nothing but consistent, respectful of her boundaries, and deeply devoted to Beatrice, and yet, she couldn't bring herself to fully believe in his redemption. Part of her feared that one day, he would slip back into the man he used to be. She couldn't afford to let her guard down, not again. A knock on the door pulled Anna from her thoughts. It was late, and she wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened the door, she was surprised to find Marcos standing there, his expression tense, almost anxious. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," he said quickly, "but I needed to talk to you." Anna crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "It's late, Marcos. What's going on?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know things between us have been complicated, and I know I don't have the right to ask this, but I need to know. Do you think there's ever a chance for us? Not just as parents to Beatrice, but as us?" Anna felt her heart tighten. She had been dreading this conversation, knowing that it would come eventually, but still unprepared for it. She looked into Marco's eyes and saw the sincerity there, the hope that maybe, after everything, there was still something left between them. But Anna couldn't give him the answer he wanted. "Marcos," she began, her voice steady but sad, "I appreciate everything you've done this past year. You've been a great father to Beatrice, and I can see that. You've changed, but what you're asking for, I don't know if I can give you that." He frowned, his shoulders sagging slightly. "Why? Is it because of what I did? I know I hurt you, Anna, but I've spent every day trying to make up for it." Anna shook her head, her voice soft. "It's not just about what you did, it's about what it did to me. I had to rebuild my life, Marcos. I had to learn how to be strong on my own, and that changed me. I'm not the same person I was back then." Marcos swallowed, clearly struggling with her words. "I don't expect you to be the same, Anna. I've changed too. I don't want to give up on the idea of us." Anna looked away, trying to keep her emotions in check. She had spent years building walls around herself, walls that protected her from ever feeling the kind of pain Marcos had caused. Letting those walls down was terrifying. "I don't know if I can ever feel that way about you again," Anna admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I don't want to make promises I can't keep." Marcos nodded slowly, his expression resigned. "I understand. I had to ask. I had to know." Anna met his eyes again, and for the first time in a long time, she saw the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago. But she wasn't that woman anymore, and that love, if it still existed, was buried under layers of hurt and time. "I'm sorry," she said softly. Marcos gave her a small, sad smile. "Don't be. I'm just glad to be here for Beatrice. That's what matters most." He turned to leave, but Anna called after him. "Marcos, I'm not saying never. I need time." He nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'll be here, whenever you're ready, or if you're never ready, I'll still be here for Beatrice." As Marcos walked away, Anna closed the door, leaning against it as she let out a shaky breath. The truth was, she didn't know what the future held. Maybe, in time, the wounds would heal enough for her to let him in again, or maybe, they would remain where they were. Co-parents, partners in raising their daughter, but nothing more. For now, that was enough. Anna had survived the storm, rebuilt her life, and for the first time in a long time, she felt at peace with where she was. Whatever came next, she knew she could handle it. As the months passed, the routine between Anna, Marcos, and Beatrice continued to stabilize. Their lives became intertwined in a way that felt almost natural, and Anna began to find comfort in the rhythm they had created. Marcos was present, involved, and steady, a stark contrast to the man he had once been. Beatrice flourished in the presence of both her parents, and her happiness was undeniable. For Anna, seeing her daughter thrive was all that mattered. But even as things seemed to be settling into a new normal, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that something was still unresolved. The walls she had built around herself, the emotional barriers that protected her from being hurt again, remained firmly in place, and while Marcos never pushed, his presence was a constant reminder of the past and the possibility of the future. Then, one evening, as Anna sat at her kitchen table going over some work, she received a phone call that would shake the fragile peace she had built. It was from one of Marcos' old business partners, a man she hadn't spoken to in years. His voice was urgent, strained, and filled with worry. "Anna, you need to know something about Marcos," he said, his words sending a chill down her spine. "What is it?" she asked, her heart pounding in her chest. "There's trouble with his finances, a lot of trouble. He's in deep with some very bad people, and I'm worried it's going to get ugly." Anna felt the ground shift beneath her. All the stability she had fought to create suddenly felt fragile, as if it could crumble at any moment. She thanked the man for calling and hung up, her mind racing with fear and uncertainty. Was Marcos really in financial trouble again? After everything, had he somehow fallen back into the destructive patterns that had caused him to lose so much in the past? That night, Anna couldn't sleep, The thought of Marcos jeopardizing everything, their daughter's security, the peace they had built, terrified her. She had allowed him back into their lives for Beatrice's sake, but now she wondered if that had been a mistake, if he had put them in danger. She didn't know if she could forgive him, not this time. The next morning, Anna called Marcos, asking him to meet her at a cafe. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed answers. When Marcos arrived, he immediately sensed the tension. Anna sat across from him, her arms crossed, her eyes sharp with worry. He hadn't seen her look this guarded in months, and the sight of it made his heart sink. "What's going on, Anna?" he asked, sitting down. "I got a call last night," she said, her voice calm but cold, "from someone you used to do business with. He told me you're in financial trouble again, that you're involved with dangerous people. Is it true?" Marco's face paled. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His silence was all the confirmation Anna needed. "Marcos, I trusted you," she said, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "I let you back into Beatrice's life because I thought you had changed, and now you're telling me you've put us all at risk again?" "It's not like that," Marcos said quickly, his voice pleading. "I didn't want you to find out this way. Yes, I'm in some trouble, but I'm handling it. I've been working to fix things." "Fix things?" Anna's voice rose, incredulous. "How can you say you're fixing things when you're hiding this from me? You promised you'd changed, Marcos. You promised you wouldn't hurt us again." "I'm not trying to hurt anyone," Marcos insisted, his eyes filled with desperation. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to drag you into this. I've made some mistakes, but I'm doing everything I can to make it right." Anna shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't believe this. I let you into Beatrice's life, and now I'm supposed to trust that you're handling it? How can I trust you, Marcos?" "How?" Marcos leaned forward, his expression pained. "Anna, I'm begging you, don't shut me out. I'm not the man I used to be. Yes, I've made mistakes, but I swear, I'm doing everything I can to protect you and Beatrice. I would never let anything happen to either of you." Anna's heart ached. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he could fix this without causing more harm, but the weight of his past mistakes pressed down on her, and the fear of being hurt again was overwhelming. "I can't do this," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep putting Beatrice and myself in danger because of your mistakes. I thought you had changed, but maybe I was wrong." Marcos reached for her hand, but Anna pulled away, her eyes filled with pain. "Please, Anna," he said softly, "don't give up on me. Not now." Anna stood up, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. "I need time to think," she said, her voice shaking. "But right now, I can't let you near Beatrice, not until I know for sure that we're safe." Marcos looked devastated, but he nodded, understanding that he had no right to argue. "I'll do whatever you need me to do," he said quietly, "just don't shut me out completely." Anna walked away, her heart breaking all over again. She had thought they were finally building something stable, something real, but now, everything felt uncertain, and as she drove home, her mind was filled with one thought. Had she made a mistake by letting Marcos back into their lives? Days passed, and the weight of Anna's decision pressed on her like a heavy fog. She couldn't stop replaying the conversation with Marcos in her head, wondering if she had made the right choice by keeping him away from Beatrice. The financial trouble he was in had shaken her trust completely. She had worked too hard to rebuild her life, and the thought of losing everything again was unbearable. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the small, persistent voice in her heart that told her maybe, just maybe, Marcos was truly trying to change. For Beatrice, the absence of her father was confusing. She would often ask about him, her innocent questions tugging at Anna's heart. "When is Daddy coming? Did he forget about me?" Anna did her best to reassure her, but each time she saw the disappointment in Beatrice's eyes, it felt like another piece of her own heart broke. One evening, after putting Beatrice to bed, Anna sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She had been avoiding Marco's calls for days, not ready to confront the situation, but deep down, she knew she couldn't keep running from this. Beatrice deserved answers, and Anna needed closure. One way or another. Finally, with a deep breath, she called Marcos. He answered on the first ring. "Anna." His voice was soft, relieved. "Thank you for calling. We need to talk," Anna said, her voice firm. "I need the truth, Marcos. All of it. No more hiding." "Okay," Marcos replied. "I'll tell you everything. Can we meet?" They agreed to meet the next afternoon in a quiet cafe, the same one where they had first discussed him re-entering Beatrice's life. As Anna sat waiting, her mind raced with questions. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew she needed to hear the full truth before making any final decisions. When Marcos arrived, he looked exhausted, like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He sat down across from Anna, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Marcos took a deep breath and began. I've made a lot of mistakes, he admitted, his voice low. When I left you and Beatriz, I thought I was chasing something better, something that would make me feel alive. But all I did was destroy everything that mattered. Anna listened, her arms crossed, her eyes focused on him but still guarded. After Carolina left, I tried to rebuild my life, but I was reckless. I invested in the wrong things, trusted the wrong people, and now, I'm paying the price for those mistakes, he continued, his voice full of regret. But Anna, I swear, I'm not putting you or Beatriz in danger. The trouble I'm in is bad, but it's mine to deal with. I've been working on it for months, and I'm close to getting things back under control. Anna raised an eyebrow, still skeptical. And why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this a secret, knowing how much was at stake? Marcos looked down, shame etched on his face. Because I didn't want to lose you and Beatriz again. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd cut me out of your lives for good. I thought I could fix it on my own before it became too much. Anna sighed, her frustration evident. That's the problem, Marcos. You keep trying to fix everything on your own, but you're not alone in this. Beatriz is involved too, and I need to know everything if I'm going to protect her. I know, Marcos said softly, and I'm sorry. I was wrong to keep it from you, but I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Let me prove that I can handle this, that I can be the father Beatriz deserves. Anna sat back, her mind spinning with conflicting emotions. She had heard these promises before, felt the sting of his betrayal, and now she was faced with the impossible decision of whether to believe him again. Marcos seemed different. More humble, more aware of the damage he had caused, but was it enough? I don't know, Marcos, Anna said finally, her voice quiet. I don't know if I can trust you again. Beatriz is the most important thing in my life, and I can't let anything jeopardize her happiness or her safety. Marcos nodded, his face lined with regret. I understand, and if you need more time, I'll give you that, but I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for Beatriz, and I'm here for you, even if you don't want me back in your life. Anna looked away, blinking back the tears that threatened to fall. She had spent so long protecting herself from being hurt again, and now she was faced with the possibility of opening herself up to that pain once more. I need time, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I need to think about what's best for Beatriz and for me. Marcos nodded, his expression full of understanding. Take all the time you need, I'm not going anywhere. They left the cafe in silence, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air between them. As Anna drove home, her heart was heavy with indecision. She had spent years building a life without Marcos, and now he was asking for a chance to be part of it again. Could she trust him after everything? Or would letting him back in only lead to more heartbreak? That night, Anna sat by Beatriz's bedside, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, unaware of the storm that was brewing in the world of the adults around her. Anna knew one thing for certain. Whatever decision she made, it would change everything. Days passed, and the weight of Anna's decision pressed on her like a heavy fog. She couldn't stop replaying the conversation with Marcos in her head, wondering if she had made the right choice by keeping him away from Beatriz. The financial trouble he was in had shaken her trust completely. She had worked too hard to rebuild her life, and the thought of losing everything again was unbearable. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the small, persistent voice in her heart that told her maybe, just maybe, Marcos was truly trying to change. For Beatriz, the absence of her father was confusing. She would often ask about him, her innocent questions tugging at Anna's heart. When is Daddy coming? Did he forget about me? Anna did her best to reassure her, but each time she saw the disappointment in Beatriz's eyes, it felt like another piece of her own heart broke. One evening, after putting Beatriz to bed, Anna sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone. She had been avoiding Marcos' calls for days, not ready to confront the situation, but deep down, she knew she couldn't keep running from this. Beatriz deserved answers, and Anna needed closure, one way or another. Finally, with a deep breath, she called Marcos. He answered on the first ring. Anna, his voice was soft, relieved. Thank you for calling, we need to talk, Anna said, her voice firm. I need the truth, Marcos, all of it, no more hiding. Okay, Marcos replied, I'll tell you everything. Can we meet? They agreed to meet the next afternoon in a quiet cafe, the same one where they had first discussed him re-entering Beatriz's life. As Anna sat waiting, her mind raced with questions. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew she needed to hear the full truth before making any final decisions. When Marcos arrived, he looked exhausted, like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. He sat down across from Anna, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Marcos took a deep breath and began. I've made a lot of mistakes, he admitted, his voice low. When I left You and Beatrice, I thought I was chasing something better, something that would make me feel alive, but all I did was destroy everything that mattered." Anna listened, her arms crossed, her eyes focused on him but still guarded. "After Carolina left, I tried to rebuild my life, but I was reckless. I invested in the wrong things, trusted the wrong people, and now, I'm paying the price for those mistakes," he continued, his voice full of regret. "But Anna, I swear, I'm not putting you or Beatrice in danger. The trouble I'm in is bad, but it's mine to deal with. I've been working on it for months, and I'm close to getting things back under control." Anna raised an eyebrow, still skeptical. "And why didn't you tell me? Why did you keep this a secret, knowing how much was at stake?" Marcos looked down, shame etched on his face. "Because I didn't want to lose you and Beatrice again. I was afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd cut me out of your lives for good. I thought I could fix it on my own before it became too much." Anna sighed, her frustration evident. "That's the problem, Marcos. You keep trying to fix everything on your own, but you're not alone in this. Beatrice is involved too, and I need to know everything if I'm going to protect her." "I know," Marcos said softly, "and I'm sorry. I was wrong to keep it from you, but I'm asking you to trust me one more time. Let me prove that I can handle this, that I can be the father Beatrice deserves." Anna sat back, her mind spinning with conflicting emotions. She had heard these promises before, felt the sting of his betrayal, and now she was faced with the impossible decision of whether to believe him again. Marcos seemed different, more humble, more aware of the damage he had caused, but was it enough? "I don't know, Marcos," Anna said finally, her voice quiet. "I don't know if I can trust you again. Beatrice is the most important thing in my life, and I can't let anything jeopardize her happiness or her safety." Marcos nodded, his face lined with regret. "I understand, and if you need more time, I'll give you that, but I want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'm here for Beatrice, and I'm here for you, even if you don't want me back in your life." Anna looked away, blinking back the tears that threatened to fall. She had spent so long protecting herself from being hurt again, and now she was faced with the possibility of opening herself up to that pain once more. "I need time," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I need to think about what's best for Beatrice and for me." Marcos nodded, his expression full of understanding. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." They left the cafe in silence, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air between them. As Anna drove home, her heart was heavy with indecision. She had spent years building a life without Marcos, and now he was asking for a chance to be part of it again. Could she trust him after everything? Or would letting him back in only lead to more heartbreak? That night, Anna sat by Beatrice's bedside, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, unaware of the storm that was brewing in the world of the adults around her. Anna knew one thing for certain. Whatever decision she made, it would change everything. The next few days were a blur of conflicting emotions for Anna. She found herself torn between the desire to protect her heart and the part of her that longed to believe in the possibility of change. Each time she looked at Beatrice, her sweet, innocent daughter, she was reminded of how much was at stake. Beatrice's happiness and security were her top priorities, and Anna couldn't afford to make the wrong choice. Marcos continued to give her space, but he was always present in the background, checking in on Beatrice, asking if she needed anything. He was careful not to overstep, and Anna could sense his genuine effort to make things right. Yet, despite his persistence, the question remained. Could she trust him? One evening, as Anna was putting Beatrice to bed, her daughter asked a question that made Anna's heart stop. "Mommy, why doesn't Daddy come around anymore?" Beatrice's wide eyes were filled with confusion, and her innocent tone cut straight to Anna's core. Anna sat down on the edge of the bed, taking a deep breath. "Daddy is going through some things right now, sweetheart," she explained gently, "but he loves you very much, and he's doing his best to make sure he can be here for you." Beatrice frowned, her little hands clutching her stuffed animal. "I miss him," she said softly. "I want him to come back." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. The decision she was grappling with wasn't just about her anymore, it was about Beatrice's relationship with her father, and as much as Anna wanted to protect her daughter from potential disappointment, she couldn't ignore how much Marcos meant to her. The bond between them was growing, and Anna knew that taking Marcos out of Beatrice's life completely would cause her daughter pain. After tucking Beatrice in, Anna sat alone in the quiet of the living room, her mind swirling with thoughts. Could she really deny Beatrice the chance to have a father? Could she keep shutting Marcos out when it was clear that, at least for now, he was trying? The next morning, Anna made a decision. She couldn't keep avoiding the situation, couldn't keep holding Marcos at a distance without giving him the opportunity to prove himself. If he truly had changed, if he was genuinely committed to being there for Beatrice, then she owed it to her daughter to give him that chance. She called Marcos. asking him to meet her at the park, the same park where he had first reconnected with Beatrice months ago. He agreed immediately, his voice filled with hope, though cautious. When Anna arrived, Beatrice was already running toward the swings, her excitement bubbling over. Marcos stood nearby, waiting for Anna with a nervous energy she hadn't seen in him before. As Anna approached, he gave her a small, tentative smile, unsure of what to expect. "We need to talk," Anna said, her tone serious but calm. Marcos nodded, following her to a bench where they could watch Beatrice play. "I've thought about everything," Anna began, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I've thought about Beatrice, about what's best for her, and about everything that's happened between us." Marcos listened intently, his gaze never leaving her face. "I'm still angry, Marcos," Anna admitted, her voice steady. "I'm still hurt by everything that happened, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully trust you again. But Beatrice loves you, and I can't take that away from her. She deserves to have a father in her life." Marcos nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Anna, I promise. I won't let her down. I won't let you down." Anna held up her hand, stopping him. "This isn't about us," she said firmly. "I'm giving you the chance to be a father to Beatrice, but that's all this is for now. If you prove that you can be consistent, if you show me that you're serious about being in her life, then we'll see, but I'm not making any promises beyond that." Marcos swallowed hard, nodding in understanding. "I understand, and I'm grateful for the chance. I won't let either of you down." For the first time in months, Anna felt a small sense of relief. She wasn't sure where things would go from here, but at least she had made a decision. Marcos would be part of Beatrice's life, and for now, that was enough. As they sat there, watching Beatrice swing higher and higher, Anna allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, things could finally start to heal. But deep down, she knew this was just the beginning. The real test was yet to come. Weeks passed, and slowly, life began to settle into a new kind of normal. Marcos became a more regular presence in Beatrice's life. They spent time together almost every weekend, and Anna started to notice the bond between them deepening. Beatrice was happier, more confident, and her excitement when she saw her father was undeniable. For Anna, this brought a mixture of relief and anxiety. She wanted Beatrice to be happy, but the fear of Marcos slipping back into his old ways still lingered, ever present in the back of her mind. Marcos was careful, though. He never overstepped the boundaries Anna had set. He was respectful, patient, and never pushed for more than she was willing to give. He focused on Beatrice, making sure that every interaction they had was positive and loving. He didn't bring up their past relationship, and for that, Anna was grateful. One Saturday afternoon, while Beatrice was napping after a fun morning with her father, Anna received a call. It was from her lawyer, a contact she had maintained after the divorce, just in case anything ever went wrong with Marcos again. "I have some news," her lawyer began. "I know you've been concerned about Marcos' financial situation. I've looked into it more deeply, and while he's not in the clear, it seems like he's genuinely working to fix things. His debts are being managed, and from what I can see, he's doing everything he can to clean up the mess." Anna let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. "So, we're not in danger?" she asked, needing to hear it clearly. "No, from what I can tell, there's no immediate danger to you or Beatrice. It seems like Marcos is keeping his promises." Anna hung up the phone, her heart feeling lighter than it had in a long time. For the first time, it seemed like the storm that had loomed over her and Beatrice for so long might finally be clearing. Marcos was truly making an effort, and while she wasn't ready to fully trust him, she couldn't deny that things were moving in the right direction. Later that evening, as Anna and Beatrice sat together reading a bedtime story, Beatrice looked up at her mother with wide, innocent eyes. "Mommy, do you think Daddy will always be here now?" she asked, her voice full of hope. Anna's heart clenched. She didn't want to give her daughter false promises, but she also didn't want to take away the joy Beatrice was feeling from having her father back in her life. "I think Daddy is trying very hard to be here for you," Anna said carefully, stroking Beatrice's hair, "and I hope that he will always try his best to be a good father for you." Beatrice smiled, satisfied with that answer, and curled up against Anna's side. As Anna held her daughter close, she felt a sense of peace that had been absent for a was rebuilding his life. They were eager to reconnect. Anna hesitated but eventually agreed. She wasn't ready to let her guard down completely, but if Beatrice was going to have a relationship with her father, she deserved to know the rest of his family as well. When they arrived at the gathering, Anna was surprised by the warmth of the reception. Marco's parents, who had always been distant when their marriage fell apart, welcomed her and Beatrice with open arms. They doted on Beatrice, showering her with attention and gifts. For Beatrice, it was a magical day, full of love and laughter. For Anna, it was strange, like stepping into a past life she had long since left behind. As the day went on, Anna found herself talking to Marcos more than she had in months. They chatted about Beatriz, about her progress in school, and about the little things that made her happy. For the first time, the conversation felt easy. Almost comfortable, like two parents who had found a way to move beyond the pain of the past. But as the evening wore on and the gathering began to wind down, Anna found herself alone with Marcos in the backyard, the soft glow of the setting sun casting long shadows across the grass. "Thank you for coming today," Marcos said quietly, his voice sincere. "I know this hasn't been easy for you." Anna nodded, her arms crossed as she looked out at the horizon. "It's been a lot," she admitted, "but I'm doing this for Beatriz. She deserves to have a family, even if it's not the one we planned." Marcos turned to her, his expression serious. "I know I've asked this before, and I don't want to push, but do you think there's ever a chance for us to find a way back to each other? Not just as parents, but as partners." Anna's heart skipped a beat. It was the question she had been avoiding, the one she wasn't sure she had an answer for. "I don't know," she said honestly, meeting his gaze. "I've spent so long building a life without you, learning to stand on my own, and I'm still not sure if I can ever trust you again, not in the way we used to be." Marcos nodded slowly, his face full of understanding. "I get it, and I don't want to rush you or make you feel like you have to make a decision now. I want you to know that I'm here, and I'll keep being here, no matter what." Anna smiled faintly, appreciating his patience but still unsure if she could ever fully open her heart again. "Let's just take it one step at a time," she said softly, "for Beatriz, and maybe, in time, we'll see what happens." Marcos nodded, and for the first time in a long time, Anna felt a sense of hope, not just for Beatriz, but maybe, just maybe, for herself as well. As time passed, the fragile peace between Anna and Marcos solidified into something more stable. They had fallen into a steady rhythm, co-parenting Beatriz, sharing milestones, and finding ways to communicate that didn't bring up the painful past. Marcos continued to prove himself, showing up consistently, keeping his promises, and more importantly, making Beatriz feel loved and secure. Beatriz thrived in this new dynamic. The presence of both her parents, even if they weren't together in the traditional sense, brought her a joy that was undeniable. Every time she laughed, every time she eagerly waited for her father to arrive, Anna felt a sense of contentment. Beatriz was happy, and that was what mattered most. But even as their lives settled into this new normal, there was still an unspoken question hanging in the air. Could there ever be more between Anna and Marcos? The two of them had started to reconnect, sharing moments that felt lighter, more comfortable. The awkwardness of their past had started to fade, replaced by a tentative understanding. Yet, Anna wasn't sure if she was ready to cross the line from co-parents to something more. One evening, Anna sat alone in her apartment, thinking about everything that had happened over the last few months. Marcos had changed. There was no denying that. The reckless, selfish man who had once humiliated her was gone, replaced by someone more humble, more thoughtful. But trust was still fragile, and the fear of getting hurt again lingered in the back of her mind. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcos. "I know it's been a long road, but I want you to know how much I appreciate everything you've done. Not just for Beatriz, but for giving me the chance to be part of her life. I'm grateful every day." Anna stared at the message, her heart conflicted. It was clear that Marcos was trying, that he genuinely cared not just for Beatriz, but for her too. Yet, she couldn't shake the fear that opening her heart again could lead to more pain. The next day, Marcos picked up Beatriz for one of their usual outings, leaving Anna with a few hours to herself. She decided to take a walk, something she hadn't done in a while. As she strolled through the quiet streets of her neighborhood, she found herself reflecting on her life, how far she had come, how much she had changed. The truth was, Anna was no longer the woman she had been when she and Marcos first met. She had grown, evolved, and learned to stand on her own. She had built a life without him, and she was proud of that. But did that mean there was no room for him now? Was there a chance that, after everything, they could build something new together? Later that afternoon, when Marcos returned with Beatriz, he stayed a little longer than usual, playing with her in the living room while Anna prepared dinner. As she watched them together, something inside her shifted, seeing the love in Marcos' eyes as he played with their daughter, the genuine joy he took in being part of her life. It stirred something in Anna, something she had buried deep down. After Beatriz had fallen asleep, Anna and Marcos found themselves alone in the living room. The quiet between them wasn't uncomfortable, but there was an unspoken tension that neither of them could ignore. Marcos cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about us," he said quietly, his voice careful. "I know I don't deserve another chance after everything that happened, but I want you to know that if there's ever a day when you feel ready, I'm here." Anna looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. She had known this conversation would come eventually, but now that it was here, she wasn't sure how to respond. "Marcos," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I've spent so long protecting myself from getting hurt again. I built this life without you because I had to, and I'm proud of that, but," she paused, trying to find the right words, "but I can't deny that things have changed, you've changed, and part of me wonders if maybe we could find a way forward, together." Marcos' eyes softened, a mixture of hope and relief washing over his face. "I don't expect you to make any decisions right now," he said quickly. "I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here, whatever you decide." Anna nodded, grateful for his patience but still unsure of where her heart stood. "I need time," she said finally. "I don't know if I'm ready to jump into anything yet, but I'm open to seeing where this goes. One step at a time." Marcos smiled, a genuine, warm smile that made Anna feel like, for the first time in years, things might actually be okay. "I can do that," he said softly. As Marcos left that night, Anna sat by Beatrice's bedside, watching her daughter sleep peacefully. The future was still uncertain, and there were no guarantees, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt a sense of hope, a cautious, tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy, and there would be challenges along the way, but if there was one thing Anna had learned, it was that she was strong enough to handle whatever came next, and maybe, this time, they could find a way to build something real, something lasting, something that was worth fighting for. In the months that followed, Anna and Marcos navigated their delicate relationship with care. They were no longer just co-parents, but they were also not fully partners again. There was something in between, a cautious exploration of what could be. They spent more time together, not just for Beatrice but for themselves, shared dinners, long conversations, and moments where they began to rediscover each other in a way that was different from before. For Anna, it was both comforting and terrifying. She had worked so hard to rebuild her life after Marco's betrayal, and now she found herself opening up again, piece by piece, each moment with him, each laugh they shared, chipped away at the walls she had built to protect herself. But those walls didn't come down easily. There were days when doubt crept in, when the memories of the pain he had caused resurfaced, making her question if she was doing the right thing. Marcos, for his part, remained patient. He never pushed, never asked for more than Anna was willing to give. He knew he had to earn her trust, and he was willing to put in the time. His focus was on being there for both Anna and Beatrice, building a foundation of consistency and love that he hoped would eventually heal the wounds he had caused. One afternoon, as they sat in the park watching Beatrice play with some other children, Marcos turned to Anna, his expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking a lot about how much has changed in the past year," he said quietly. Anna glanced at him, nodding. "It's been a lot," she admitted. "I didn't think we'd ever be here, honestly." Marcos smiled, a touch of sadness in his eyes. "Neither did I, but I'm grateful for it, for this chance to be in your life again." Anna looked away for a moment, her heart full of conflicting emotions. She had spent so long being angry, hurt, and protective of herself that it was strange to feel the warmth that had begun to grow between them. "You've changed," she said softly. "I can see that, and I appreciate everything you've done for Beatrice. You've been a good father." Marcos smiled, but there was something deeper in his expression, something that hinted at the vulnerability he was still carrying. "I've tried," he said, "but I'm still hoping that one day, maybe, I can prove to you that I can be more than just a good father, that I can be the partner you deserve." Anna's heart skipped a beat at his words. She hadn't expected him to say it so directly, and she wasn't sure how to respond. The fear of being hurt again still lingered, but there was also a small part of her that wondered, what if this time was different? "I'm not ready," she said honestly, her voice quiet. "I'm still trying to figure all of this out. I don't want to rush into anything." Marcos nodded, his eyes full of understanding. "I know, and I'll wait, as long as it takes." The days turned into weeks, and Anna found herself thinking more and more about Marcos' words. The past had left deep scars, but the present was different. Marcos had proven that he was serious about being part of their lives, and the consistency of his actions was starting to rebuild something Anna thought she had lost: trust. One evening, after putting Beatrice to bed, Anna found herself standing by the window, looking out at the quiet night. Her thoughts were heavy, filled with memories of the past and the possibilities of the future. She had come so far on her own, built a life that she was proud of, and yet, there was a part of her that longed for more, not just for Beatrice, but for herself. She didn't want to admit it, but a small part of her was beginning to believe in the possibility of a new kind of love with Marcos. One that was built on the lessons they had both learned, on the pain they had survived, and on the growth they had experienced. The Next morning, as Marcos arrived to take Beatriz to the park, Anna stopped him before he could leave. "Marcos," she began, her voice steady but hesitant, "I've been thinking." He turned to her, waiting, his expression cautious but hopeful. "I don't know where this is going," she said, taking a deep breath, "but I think I'm ready to try, not just for Beatriz, but for us." Slowly, carefully, "But I'm willing to see where this can go." Marco's face lit up with a mixture of surprise and joy. "Really?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. Anna nodded, her heart racing. "Yes, but we take it slow, no promises, no expectations, just one step at a time." Marcos smiled, the relief and happiness clear in his eyes. "One step at a time," he agreed. As they left together, Beatriz skipping happily between them, Anna felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was tentative, fragile, but it was there. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could build something new, something that was worth all the pain they had gone through to get here. Anna didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever happened next, she was ready to face it. With Beatriz by her side and a new sense of possibility in her heart, Anna felt stronger than ever. As the months continued to pass, Anna and Marcos settled into a new rhythm, one built on mutual respect, patience, and a cautious optimism. True to her word, Anna allowed their relationship to evolve slowly. It wasn't without its challenges. Old wounds resurfaced at times, and there were moments when Anna felt the weight of her past doubts pulling her back, but every time those fears crept in, Marcos was there, steady, patient, and proving with every small action that he was different now. Beatriz, blissfully unaware of the complexities between her parents, thrived in the presence of both her mother and father. She laughed more, her happiness shining brighter with each passing day. For her, life was simple. Her parents loved her, and they were always there for her. It was everything a child could ask for. Anna's heart swelled each time she saw the bond between Marcos and Beatriz deepen. She had given him a second chance for their daughter's sake. And now, as she saw how much love Marcos poured into every moment with Beatriz, she knew she had made the right choice. He was the father she had always hoped he would be. One evening, as the three of them sat together in the living room, Beatriz asleep on the couch after a long day of playing, Anna found herself smiling without even realizing it. Marcos noticed and leaned closer, his voice gentle. "What's on your mind?" he asked, his tone warm and curious. Anna glanced at him, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," she admitted. "I never thought we'd be here." Marcos nodded, his gaze full of understanding. "Neither did I," he said quietly, "but I'm glad we are. I'm grateful every day for this second chance." Anna looked down, her heart full of emotions she hadn't expected to feel again. "You've changed," she said softly, "and I'm starting to believe it. I'm starting to trust you again." Marcos reached out and took her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "I'll keep proving it," he promised, "every day, for as long as it takes." In that moment, Anna felt something shift inside her. The fear that had held her back for so long, the doubt that had clouded her heart, began to fade. It wasn't gone completely, but it was less powerful now. In its place was something new. Hope for the future, for the family they were rebuilding, and for the love that was slowly, carefully, finding its way back to them. As the months continued to pass, Anna and Marcos took small steps forward, rebuilding their relationship piece by piece. They didn't rush into anything. There were no grand gestures or sudden declarations of love. Instead, they focused on the small, everyday moments. The conversations, the shared dinners, the laughter they found in Beatriz's antics, and slowly, almost without realizing it, Anna found herself falling for Marcos again. Not the man he had been, but the man he had become. One afternoon, as they sat in the park watching Beatriz play, Marcos turned to Anna with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice steady, "about us, about the future." Anna's heart skipped a beat, but she remained calm. "What about it?" she asked, curious. Marcos smiled, a soft, genuine smile that made Anna's heart flutter in a way she hadn't expected. "I don't want to rush you or pressure you," he said carefully, "but I think we're ready for the next step. I don't mean getting married again or anything like that. At least, not yet. But I do want to build a life with you and Beatriz, a real one." Anna looked at him, her emotions swirling. She had been so focused on protecting herself, on keeping things slow and steady, that she hadn't stopped to think about what the future might actually look like. "You mean, us?" she asked, her voice soft. Marcos nodded. "Yes, I want to be with you, Anna, not just as Beatriz's father, but as your partner. I want us to build something new together, something better than what we had before." Anna sat in silence for a moment, her heart racing. The fear was still there, lingering at the edges, but it was overshadowed by something stronger, hope. She had seen Marcos change, seen him prove himself time and time again, and now, as he sat there, offering her the chance at a new future, Anna felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. The desire to take that chance. "I think I'm ready," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm ready to try." Marcos smiled, a look of pure relief and joy washing over his face. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "One step at a time," he reminded her, his voice full of promise. Anna nodded, her heart full of hope for the future. "One step at a time," she agreed, and so, they began to build their new life together, slowly, carefully, but with a sense of purpose and love that neither of them had expected to find again. It wasn't a perfect fairy tale ending, but it was real. It was a story of redemption, forgiveness, and the kind of love that could only come from surviving the storms of the past. As Anna looked at Beatriz, laughing and playing, she knew that no matter what the future held, they were strong enough to face it together. They had built something new, something worth fighting for, and for the first time in a long time, Anna felt ready to embrace the love and happiness that was right in front of her. The end of their story wasn't about returning to the past. It was about creating a future they could all be proud of, one filled with love, forgiveness, and the promise of new beginnings.